This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you.
Is up, ladies and gentlemen. We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. This is your first time tuning in. Welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Thursday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys. He's been on the show a couple of times, and I always enjoy talking to him. He loves this industry. He loves what he's doing out there, and we're just going to sit back and provide you guys some value today. So I want to welcome my good friend, Mr. Lars Ward, back on the show. Lars, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Hey, pleasure's all mine. I'm looking forward to hanging out. We've already been getting into it today, so this is going to be a great conversation.
I think next time I'm just going to hit go live right away, and we're not even going to talk behind the scenes, because we could just go on for, forever about this stuff, man. But dude, what's new, man? How's everything going in your world?
Everything's been going great. So been on the show a couple of times. I've been in the industry for a long time. I've been at Transflo for a year and a half. And I know a lot of folks have probably heard of Transflo. Maybe they know a little bit of what we do, but not everything. Yep. Here's what I tell you. We help carriers, we help brokers to do a lot of different things. And when you ask me, how are things going? Market's heating up a little bit. Folks are starting to make more investment in their businesses, not less. Things are going really well. So there's a lot to talk about there.
Yeah, no, let's break that down, man. For the people who are unaware of what Transflo is, man, let's start with that and work out.
Yeah. I'd say Transflo is one of the biggest names in freight tech, and has done a lot of different things over time. So yeah, you might have used different Transflo services over the years. Today, I think we're known for 3 core pillars. We do a lot in the telematics space. We have a lot with cameras, doing things in the cab to help drivers and fleets. We have one of the industry's leading mobile applications. A lot of fleets are using the Transflo Mobile Plus app. Some fleets are using it in a white labeled application. There are a lot of drivers over the road using that app every single day. And then the last vertical that I think we're well known for, and what I focus on, is all back office automation. Mm-hmm. So if you're a carrier, if you're a broker, what happens when you get the paperwork from the driver? Or if you're a broker, what happens when you get the invoice packet from your carrier? And how can we help you to speed up everything that happens in the back office? And Chris, this, I've gotten to be super passionate about how we think about the finances of a business. I mean, that's the lifeblood of everything we do. Yeah. You've got to get that part right.
Yeah, dude. It is the thing that I think about 99% of the time. Oh, right. Sure. Right. Because how do I improve my cash flow? How do I get my money faster and cheaper? Because it's like, I think that, and I'll be putting out a post about this, but I started doing a lot more granular, like the unsexy side of entrepreneurship that doesn't get any traction on the internet. I just make little clips about that because I want people to be a little bit more aware of what they're walking into, but B, I also want people to realize that they're not alone. And when I talk, access to cash, cash is everything at the end of the day. And especially if you're a business out there, and, I put a post out a while ago. I'm like, if you get physically ill at the thought of being owed $20,000 on the 30th and then owing $18,000 on the 1st, and you do not have the money to float that, don't be an entrepreneur. Like, if that makes you feel, because like that's the reality. Is that come up so much, man? Because it's like, I think the hardest part about all of this outside of like the systems development, because to me, that's the hardest part about building the businesses, is building systems that are like actually work, because ideas are great, but until you run through those ideas for 6 months of data, you don't know if it's actually working sometimes. But the second part to me is getting paid for the work that you did, knowing damn well your customer would fire you if you did not perform that task when they asked you to perform it. It makes me sick sometimes, right? Like, fortunately, Mike, I don't deal with that often, right? Like, I have great customers who pay on time, but that wasn't always the case, man. Like, dude, there was a couple of instances early on in business where I almost went bankrupt because I was owed $10,000+ from somebody. I mean, I'm a small business. I don't care what anybody says. That's a lot of money.
Yeah,
and then another one too was like, I got stiffed out of like $5,000 from somebody. Same thing. If I didn't have the cash in the bank to float that, I would have been bankrupt early on.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think a lot of folks really spend time to appreciate how critical that is to the business. And your point, I would love to see so much more content around those unsexy parts of entrepreneurship. Yeah, because everyone wants to see when you just close that new piece of business, you're celebrating it and you're on the way, you're on the path, like all that hard work was worth it. I want to see more of the messy middle, where it's like, yeah, we've got this float in the middle, and I don't know how we're figuring it out.
Yeah,
like, dude, that's scary.
It is. It's very scary. And then like the buildup phase of it as well, man, where it's like, I look at the industry as a whole. Like, I think that it's safe to say 95% of trucking, and that's on asset and brokerage, is small business. And most small businesses, and this is a data fact, like 90% of small businesses are 30 days from going out of business every single month, no matter what, due to lack of cash flow options. And that's why for me, it's like, I love talking about this. I love talking about back office automation, getting access to capital fast. Heck, man, sometimes some businesses don't even realize you're actually making it difficult for your customers to pay you. Like, why don't you have a digital option for it? Why are you, so it's little things like that, where it's like when you're sitting down and you're breaking things apart, where it's like, hey, a little automation behind the scenes can get you paid a lot faster. I truly feel this way, man. Most customers don't want to not pay you. Like, they want to pay you, but you might be making it difficult for them to be able to.
Yeah. You're going to have those customers who do play some games.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out a way to extend it a couple of more days. And, if you're thinking, hey, I don't care what the payment terms, if it's 15 days, 30, 45, we're hearing more and more, 90 days, right? Whatever it is, that is dependent on you doing all of the work the right way in order to receive that cash when you're supposed to. If you delay your process, you just add days to that float. When you add days, you're adding costs, you're adding cash, you're adding expense, headaches, worries. And so it's funny, because I think in the freight world, we are so focused on the core competency. Just how do we do a phenomenal job of delivering your freight on time, safely, with great communication and route? What we don't always do a good job of saying, how do I make sure I get paid on time? So it's funny to see, and hey, I've done it as an operator, and now I get to help tons of brokers and tons of fleets. There are a lot of best practices that are the same across the board. You start to see like the different levers different companies pull. If you can meaningfully decrease that time in between, it is a unfair advantage in business.
Yeah.
Right? Like, why aren't we focusing enough on it?
I don't know if, I think it's two parts, Lars. A, people don't want to admit that they have a problem. I think that's a very
big part. Yeah. Yep.
And then on top of it, they're afraid to have these conversations with individuals, because if you look at the financials, I would all but guarantee every single operator has been screwed in some level by, whether it be a lender, bank, whatever. So like, they're very protective of that. And, again, it's like, I look at, when it comes down to like managing your cash flow and getting on top of it, like, when you're vetting customers, for example, and that's the thing, like a lot of people that I've come across in freight, not everybody, but a lot of people, they think all business is good business. They think that how many, Lars, you've worked in sales, every prospect is $1 million prospect, right? Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Until you strip things back and you're like, damn, you guys don't have any, like, you guys can't 120 days of pay, and you guys like aging, like, what? I don't want anything to do with that, right? So it's like you gotta tether your expectations as you're going through a lot of these things when you're prospecting new business, and even when you're working with somebody too, because it's like, a sales, and this is why sales and operations need to remain separate, like truly, because sales reps are just going to agree to everything. Hey, I need another 30 days. Oh, we'll get you 90 days to pay. Don't worry about it. And then before you know it, you have no days to pay because you told them 24 months. And then, like, you need that checks and balance. You need operations to come in and hold that accountable, because I've seen this happen too, man. You go and you work with somebody for a year or two, and then that business starts having cash flow issues, and then their days to pay start to increase. Yeah. And then again, like, you gotta have somebody who's not emotionally attached to the transaction managing that side of it, because otherwise you're just going to want to say yes to everything.
Yeah. It's tough. So I had felt that pain as a sales leader so many times, where it's like, well, can I give this customer a little bit more credit? Yeah, we don't feel comfortable doing that, right? Hey, can we agree on these terms? They're pushing it out a little bit. Well, it's like, all right, but then we have to charge for it. There's a way to say yes, but then how do we compensate for that? And then that becomes a business rub. And I think keeping sort of a separation and a purity between, we want to win the business and be aggressive in everything that we do, but also having the guardrails to say, well, here's how we keep the business safe, right? Here's what's reasonable based on the data. And to that point, and this is something that I don't think a lot of folks do, they should have a scorecard for their customers. What is the cost to serve, right? So there's a lot of folks who have two very similar customers with similar business needs, similar freight, but very dissimilar experiences. Maybe it costs a lot to work with that customer to book their freight. Highly manual, a lot of touch points. Maybe their appointments are not ideal, and we start to usually cost that out a little bit. Where even though it's the same lane, we're pricing it very differently. The back office experience is a part of that customer piece of data, that customer scorecard that we don't really take account for. Where it's like, hey, what's the overall cost to serve? What are your days to pay? How many overages have we had? What's the follow-up process look like? I think at the end of the day, what we really seek to see, in that business relationship is that, like, look, we're growing, we're shipping freight, your bills are all cleaned up. But if in the process of that, you've been rejecting and short paying and causing a hassle for your back office team, all of a sudden you're just eroding any profit, any margin you actually had in that business. We're not honest enough to go back and do the accounting work to say, hey, that load that looks like a winner, yeah, you broke even to go and do that business. Well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? Right? But I think folks are starting to see that value more and more. Like what we've went through from the market over the last few years. I think it's forced everyone to kind of sharpen their approach and say, hey, look, like, we've really got to understand the business, and get our arms around it. Because if we're letting that part get a little bit fuzzy and run away from us, right, we're starting to lose from the business perspective.
Yeah, I don't know, and that's another key thing in working with shippers out there, Lars, that I don't know goes into account with a lot of people as a broker or carrier. How easy, like, how dialed in is your back office? Because, like, I think that being able to service a customer obviously is going to be priority number one. I think being able to bill them properly is like number two on the list. Like, if you are a mess to work with behind the scenes, they won't work with you, right? Yeah. And that's one of those things where it's like, I think now with the key point in automation is you don't need 2 to 3 people to do that job anymore, right? Like, you can put key automation software in place to where it's like, as soon as that driver uploads that POD, you could probably generate an invoice and then send it off to the customer all within 5 seconds, right? And then especially if you're an owner operator or a small fleet, which 97% of the trucks on the road are 10 truck or less operations. And it's like, how awesome would it be for that dispatcher who's managing 7 drivers out there, that the driver, as soon as they've delivered the load, they can snap a photo of that POD and it can auto generate an invoice. You can double check it quick, boom, send it off to your customer, because it's not 30 days from when the day delivered. It's 30 days after you actually invoice them. If you don't invoice your customers for 2 weeks, you've naturally given yourself a 45 days to pay window inadvertently.
Yep. I know you're spot on. So it's easy to think about it from the large carrier perspective, from the broker perspective, if you're a small trucker out there, you are losing out on a huge opportunity to improve your business by speeding up that process.
Yeah.
It's not just as soon as you get the POD, send it in, and the invoice might follow a few days later. We see that all the time, right? The real win should be, how do I invoice as quickly as possible? If you're a small trucking company, you don't want to go and float that cash. You're not a bank, right? Go get paid for the work you did. Get paid as quickly as you can.
Yeah. That's the thing, man, is I feel like, and again, that's another one of those learning situations that you kind of find yourself in, and where it's like, I look at it where, a lot of people, when you're building up your organization, you look at non-revenue producing seats as almost like, I don't want to invest in that right now, again, because I'll just call it what it is. When you're bootstrapping something up from the ground, you need performers generating revenue for your company, and you look at your business in a different light early on. I'm not saying everybody does, but this is a natural thought where, like, why would I put somebody in that seat? I'll just do it, right? As the dispatch sales rep, head of sales for the brokerage, I'll do all the invoicing, I'll do all of that stuff, because like I can't afford to bring in another seat. And now there's so much tools at people's disposals that I don't even think that they're aware of. And like we were talking before we started recording, and I've said this on the show, and I just replied to somebody's post about this yesterday. My bold goal is to build $100 million operation with 10 people. I think it is not an afterthought anymore. Like with where things are today, I think it can be done. But with where things are trending with AI and automation in the next 12 months, it's going to be a guarantee that it's going to happen.
Yeah. The way technology is moving right now is so exciting, because we don't know what options, what tools, what we'll be able to do in just a couple short years, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that theme is something we're going to see playing out. But, hey, just to bring it into what I'm seeing right now, I work with a lot of back office teams that have probably, as the market contracted, saw their freight volumes go down. Maybe they had to let a few people go. Then they stabilize things. They really focus on their process, right? And, they got pretty lean and mean. And now as volumes are starting to come back for a lot of providers, they're starting to see, some green shoots in the market. Things are heating up. They're feeling pain again. They're feeling pressure. They're like, oh, maybe do we need to add headcount? And now I think the question becomes like, well, hey, like what new technologies can we invest in so that we can scale without just having to add people? It's not about not adding to your team and finding great people who perform well, but if there are tasks where, you can solve it with technology, I think folks are very, very inclined to say, like, what are those things that we don't really want to do, but we can solve because there's just better tech today? I'm seeing a huge trend in that right now. Folks are, Chris, this part's really cool. I've had just countless conversations of, with brokers, with fleets who said, this is something we want to do from a technology standpoint. We need to wait a little while. And then they've come back to me saying, hey, the market is moving more quickly than we anticipated. Let's speed that conversation up. We need the ability to scale sooner, not later.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I think that now is, like the thing that I'm most excited about with where technology is I think the true like hustlers, the true high performers are going to thrive out here. And like, cause I believe in a meritocracy, right? Like I believe everybody should be compensated on the work and effort that they put forward out there. Now with the right tech and automation behind the scenes, it's only going to amplify you, right? And it's like the people who should be worried are the ones who are floating by, the ones who are notoriously taking extra time to do tasks to fill up their workday. Otherwise, so it's like, that's where I think it's going to come in. But it's like, if you look at the ultimate profitability of a trucking company, margins are razor thin. All right. Like in most businesses, margins are razor thin. And when you strip all of that away, and then now you can go in there and you can improve a couple of points, right? Like, hey, you know what? Maybe now you don't have to use that dispatch service to do all your invoicing. That takes 6% of every load off the table, right? Like you can implement automation that's in there. You can get those direct relationships. Maybe you have a couple of key brokers that you're working with or direct shippers. Think about the amount of profitability that comes in to your operation at that point. And that's just on one truck, right? So it's like, if you can take that operationally, and that's where I think ultimately tech is going to benefit the driver community more than any other player in this space, because they're going to be able to do more with less, right? Like they're going to be able to stop paying for additional services out there, because there's going to be a tool that's going to help them have an ops person behind the scene, making sure everything's up to date.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really cool sort of angle to think about that owner operator as a business owner who today has to outsource so much of what they do, right? And maybe you're not an owner. Hey, maybe you got 10 trucks, 20 trucks. That's great. How much have you had to farm out and outsource? And with new technology, what's coming in? Like, what are you going to be able to do? Because I think if you're a driver out there, you're working hard, you should be able to keep as much of that money as you can. It should be a job where it's like, hey, like I think we as an industry have done a bad job in recent years on making this a very compelling and rewarding career for the drivers, right? So we've talked a lot about like, hey, how do we make it better, and what are some things that we do? I've been in the industry for about 15 years, and I feel like that story has been the same, but there's not been a lot of, material change for the drivers, despite a lot of the technology that's come into the space. And I do think what we're seeing right now, to your point, Chris, it's like, hey, I think it's going to be very empowering for the driver community specifically, because what's happening is we're not looking at technology as solutions only for the largest companies, only for the enterprise. We're looking at a lot of these tools to say, hey, this is going to empower you more effectively to keep more of the pie that you deserve, right? That part's huge.
What are some of those things out there that you guys have identified as one of the key, we'll call it the key things that like eat up the most profit for a trucking company?
Oh man. This is probably a little bit outside of what I focus on at Transflo. But if I was just thinking, you and I were talking, it's like, hey, like where does profit kind of leak out? I still think it's in the operational sort of X's and O's of the business, right? So I was talking to a broker and owner of a pretty large brokerage, and one of the market trends that he's observed is that as fuel prices were increasing earlier this year, what he saw is that fleets were less likely to deadhead for freight. So the further you had to deadhead, the further you were experiencing the short-term cost of fuel. And you saw a lot of small truckers, hey, they were just eating through their fuel credit, right? That was something not a lot of people talked about, that as rates were increasing, or I should say, sorry, as fuel prices were increasing, rates were not increasing as quickly earlier this year. We were celebrating some of that as an industry while the small truckers were struggling, right?
Oh, dude, I talked about that on the show. That was like, because a lot of our core carriers, they had all said that. They're like, hey, listen, I can't afford to drive out west anymore because it's $8 a gallon to fill up in California as opposed to $4 a gallon here in the Midwest. And then on top of that, they're like, I'm waiting for a credit increase from my bank, for my fuel card provide, like everything. They're like, I am burning through 6 weeks of fuel in 3 weeks now with where fuel prices are. They're like, I might be out of business if these rates don't catch up soon enough, right? And it's like, and that is another thing that, again, most brokers don't think about. And again, I get it. Brokers don't need to know what it costs to run a truck. That is not their job. I always thought that is such a terrible argument. You should know what it costs to run a truck. No, you should know that. That's why you own the truck. But it's like, on top of that, though, brokers do need to be aware that there are a lot of cost factors that come into how these drivers price out their services. And when you hear that, where it's like, from a fuel perspective, that is the biggest short-term expense for most trucking companies, right? Because it's like they're filling up every 3 days. And if it goes from $1,200 to $1,700, and then if, again, you look at a line of credit, you look at a fuel card, all of that eats up quick, and then compound that times, 10, 20, 30 trucks. We're looking at an additional $60,000 to $80,000 a month in expenses just with fuel.
Yep. So when we think about, hey, like where does the profit leak out of the business? There's so many things we can do to improve elements of it. The biggest driver is going to be how have you designed the operation? What's the efficiency of the trucks? How many miles are you getting? At what rates? In what markets? How do you pick your spots? Who are you partnering with? For a lot of folks, like, and hey, here's one of the tough things about trucking, Chris, right? Like, let's just think about an owner op. First week of the month, you killed it. Ran great miles, good loads, good pay. Okay, but then fuel's kind of creeping up a little bit. Maybe you had a breakdown. Well, how much time did you lose on that breakdown? A couple hours, a couple days? How much did it cost you, right? Hey, bad load, working with the wrong broker, a new broker. They told you it was first come, first serve. That wasn't true. You just laid over for a whole day, but don't worry, they gave you $150. Hey, you start heading out. You're late on your delivery. You laid over for the weekend, right? And a couple of misses on an individual truck level, just a couple of misses over the course of a month, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days here, and what was looking like a great month, right? It's kind of just pulled away from you. It's taken away. And that same truth, like that same principle, that applies as you scale. Doesn't matter if you have 1 truck, 10 trucks, 100, 1,000 trucks. It doesn't matter, right? If you don't get those little pieces right, it is a a thin margin business that we're doing. If everything goes well, you're going to be doing great. Things are, like when things are working the way they should, trucking can be very profitable. The problem is things never work the way we plan over the road when life hits you, right? And so I think that I don't want this to sound negative, because there's been so much work to be operationally efficient, to be lean and mean over the last couple of years, and to do a great job there. But it is still the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity for truckers. Full stop. Biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity.
Yeah. A really good friend of mine is the CFO of a couple $100 million company. And he's not even in freight. And he told me, he said, the biggest mistake most business owners make is when they're looking at their expenses, they look at it from a top-down approach. They look at the biggest expenses down to the small. He says, you got to look at those small to the top, because he's like, how many services do you sign up for that you forget about? And then it's like, you look at streaming. I always equate it to streaming services. Oh, $8.99 here, $13.99 there. Most people don't think about that. But when you add that all up, we're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars a year of things you're paying for that you're not actually utilizing inside of your business. And after getting to know him very well over these past couple of years, I literally look at my P&L on a monthly basis, but I go through it with a fine-tooth comb every 30 days. And everything I see, I go to my team. Hey, are we using this still? Are we using this still? What percentage of your day are you using it? Because if we're not using it, 75% of the time, we shouldn't be paying for it. And I attack it because, again, if I look at my largest expenses, we look at rent, salary, insurance, all of that stuff. Those are very obvious fixed costs that are going to be coming against my P&L every single month. What are those variable costs? What are those small ones that creep in that kills your profitability stretched out over a 12 or a 24-month period?
It's funny because I love the real life example. Chris, I'm pretty sure you don't have any subscriptions you're paying for, any streaming services that you forgot about after that conversation, right? Yeah, right.
I got rid of everything.
Yeah. Which, I mean, hey, same here, right? But I can't tell you the number of businesses I talk to, and they tell me that they've got services they've had for years that they don't know what value they're getting out of it anymore. But someone else signed the contract. It maybe touches some piece of their business that they haven't taken a look at in a few years. And so another trend that I'm seeing, I don't know if you've heard this from too many folks, but again, it does come back to AI. We're seeing new technology do things we haven't seen before. Mm-hmm. And what it's causing a lot of folks to do is really question their business and say, hey, where do we need to modernize? What do we need to review and be very intentional about? Because we start building for the next couple of years, we can't just do it with technology that we bought that's old, that's stale now, and that we're not using anymore. And so it's really been fascinating to watch, because everyone's approaching this a little bit different, but how do you modernize for the next couple of years? And I've heard that trend come up over and over again, where it seems like there is a very, very specific focus on it this year on like, hey, last couple of years with AI, we started playing with chatbots, we were starting to make funny pictures. All of that was great. Now we're seeing real business outcomes. How are we going to modernize? How are we going to get ready for the next couple of years?
No, I think that another thing a lot of people need to look at here is what, like, with some of your contracts that you're under, you're talking about, whether it's with a software or a lease or something like that, renegotiate. All right, bring it to their attention. Go in there. When's the last? Have you? Again, I push back on everybody. I'm sure the people who do my insurance hate me, because it's like every time they come in, they're like, "Oh, it's going to be this." I'm like, why? Like, I will push back on literally everything, because every dollar counts. And it's like, if you look at like some of these long-term leases that these guys sign for trailers or whatever that looks like, or maintenance program, renegotiate that stuff. Because I guarantee most businesses are going to look at it and be like, all right, what's the cost to keep the customer as opposed to what's the cost of new business? And as somebody who develops business for my literal job right now, I know the costs incurred to get one new customer. And I'm not saying you're going to go in there and cut everything in half or anything like that. But if you haven't renegotiated your deals and it's been a couple of years and you're just one of those cash cow customers where they just like, oh, they'll just keep renewing, start there and work your way back. Like, you got to fight for that stuff. There are competitors in every vertical of every space. It doesn't matter what part of the country you live in. This is where technology is literally leveling the playing field out there, Lars. And this is going to expose a lot of poor performers. It's like, dude, you can live in rural Minnesota or rural Montana and work with somebody who is out of Dallas now, and they can get you instant stuff and they can bring you better pricing than the local provider who you've been working with for 20 years. I'm not saying relationships don't matter, but if it's my relationship with Lars surviving or my business surviving, my business is going to have to survive 100 times out of 100.
Relationships should be the tiebreaker, not the reason you won alone, right?
Correct.
Should be the tiebreaker, not the reason you win. Because look, like, hey, if you've got a great relationship with somebody, but you don't give them very competitive pricing, you don't give them very competitive service, the experience of working with you isn't very good. Why do you have access to that relationship? Like, what have you actually done to earn that? Now, not say you and I both know plenty of stories today where that's exactly how it runs. Those stories are getting more and more pressure to continue into the future because look, the relationships are great. Yes, you need to build them. You better back it up with a really great service offering.
Yeah. No,
that's it. And I love your point about renegotiation. Think about how many rates in the freight market were negotiated, not at the beginning of this year, at the end of last year, that don't work anymore, that don't reflect the cost today. Like, I'm sorry, but like, shippers were giving pressure, saying like, well, hey, we stood by you when things were, a little bit slower or whatever that story might be. Hey, you need to be working in the reality of today.
Yeah, dude, I know a lot of fleet owners who have pulled all of their equipment from long-standing relationships because these guys are expecting them to keep 2024 and 2025 pricing right now. And some of the, again, that's what I love the free market, Lars. I love it. I love every part of it because it's like your failure to adapt to the current times is going, you have to do that. You have, like, I get and I understand why people are like, oh, we've been working with them for a very long time. We just kind of tolerate it. You're the problem in that equation. Yeah. It's not your customer's fault. You're allowing that behavior. You're rewarding it, actually, where it's like, you got to put your business first because, again, I understand not all business is good business, but like, if we're looking at the dollars and cents of things out there could, like, what is it costing you to continue to do that, as opposed to what if there's a better customer out there? What if there's somebody who pays more money, loads you faster, unloads you faster?
That's such a great point. I think that, we don't spend enough time thinking about the lost opportunity cost in servicing legacy relationships that aren't all that good to you, right? Mm-hmm. Now, hey, I know you're not anti-relationships at all. You want to have great, strong, we were talking about some things that you do that are far more personal, a little bit old school, in order to develop and maintain those relationships. But look, if you've been working with XYZ customer, they're a great shipper for years, and as things started to change, they don't help you to adapt. Your insurance has gone up, your fuel has gone up, everything it costs to serve has gone up, and they want you to stay flat. They want you to go down. What's the value of that relationship, right? Like, be very specific. And to your point, and hey, like, it's not again, it's not an indictment on relationships. The point is, a relationship has to be two-sided. It has to be something that benefits both parties. Both are compromising, both are flexing, both want the other side to win, right? Yep. If it's not that, you can't just go around servicing business that sucks. Doesn't work. Like, and like everyone has if somebody's listening to this and they're a broker, they're a trucker, they're thinking about a shipper they work with that they wish they weren't.
We all have them.
And hey, look, the market right now for the first time in years is probably giving us an opportunity to take a really, like to your point, you're talking to fleets who are like, hey, we pulled all of our equipment. We don't work with them anymore. Yep. They weren't willing to work with us.
Yep.
I think you're going to hear more and more of those stories. And to your point, hey, this is what makes the market fun. This is what makes the industry fun. It's in that disruption. It creates all the opportunity. It creates all of the change. If somebody's reaching out with you with freight today that they've been shipping for years, there's a story behind why you have that opportunity. Something else didn't work on the other side of it. And so I kind of love that about, like, I don't know, the spirit of our industry is so exciting because we're always working to find that edge, and you have to earn it every day. You know, this business can be brutal. You can work with somebody for 10 years and then have a bad week and find yourself on the other side of it, you know?
No, it's true, Lars. I say you can do 1,000 shipments right for somebody, but if you expect 1,001st, you're going to lose that business, right? Like you have to show first shipment mentality every single time. And that's what we try internally to do with everybody we work with is, you know, we want to earn your business one truck at a time. It's our literal company slogan is one truck at a time.
Yeah.
You know, we like, again, man, I don't care. Like, just because I did 1,000 loads for you, I know I'm not entitled to the 1,001st. And maybe that comes when you're, you know, if you're a shipper out there and you're working with founder-led organizations, especially ones that built their business from the ground up. I'm not saying people don't appreciate the business, but I bet that founder who fought, scraped, and clawed for that first opportunity probably going to treat you a little bit different than others who might put a new rep on your account every 6 months or whatever that looks like. Because it's like, I know what it's like to not have business. And when you get business, it's like, I know what it takes to keep it, because I know what pressures are out there from everybody to move it faster, move it cheaper, and all of that stuff. And we got to find that thing of like, hey, this is why we're different than everybody else. And I think when you find that relationship with somebody, whether it's founder-led or not, I know that there's a lot of great employees out there who truly, truly care about their customers. It's like, you know, you just know, I feel like you just definitely sense a different appreciation for that business when you're in one of those relationships.
Yeah. I don't think there's any way to compare how important it is to a founder or founder-led business, you know, a smaller, you know, sort of trucking company, a smaller brokerage, how important it is to them personally than it would be at a larger organization. It's not to say that large companies don't have the right systems, tools, processes, tech, all of it. But when you're talking about the value, the importance of it, you know, I know you're the kind of guy somebody could call you anytime and it's going to matter to you, right? I know that the level of effort and care you'd have for whether it's the first load or the 1,000th load from a customer that you personally brought on is always going to be at its highest level. And so I think that's an interesting, you know, part of our industry. You see so many, like we are so entrepreneurial as an industry. I love it. All the small trucking companies, all the brokers. And it's fun too, because, you know, when you talk to, I love to ask folks this, like, hey, like what makes your company special? You kind of see their face light up a little bit and they start telling you the story. And usually it's anchored by like, hey, here's the things we did right. Or maybe they came from a different company in the industry and said, we saw these things were going wrong. They treated carriers like crap. They treated customers like crap. We knew we could do it better. So we went and made it better. Like, I love that stuff.
Dude, I love it, man. Lars, we went on time. I didn't even look here, but man, I always appreciate you coming on, man. It's always great having you. How does anybody reach out to you to find out more about what you guys got going on at TransFlo?
You know, go head over to the website, connect with us on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. Super active over there. You know, we've got a great team here at TransFlo. I think it's one of the most exciting things about us is the people we have behind our business. We've transformed, we've evolved, you know, in so many of the things that we do. And right now, I think you know, if you're looking at the back office, if cash flow is important to you, I think we have some of the best solutions out there. So be great to connect with anybody and keep the conversation going.
Perfect. Lars, I appreciate it. If you guys can't find Lars or TransFlo out there, hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in contact with them. That is going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank it on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything. Hey, ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the bag. Hey, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane